Every story has a beginning, and most stories feature a hero overcoming great adversity. How would you describe a person who was on death's door, found a way to restore his health, and was so transformed by the experience that he breathed new life into an ancient art in order to share it with the world? Sounds like a plot of a blockbuster movie, doesn't it? Have you ever experienced a life-changing event? Something you couldn't have expected, but ended up taking your life in a completely different direction? That's exactly how Jin Shin Jyutsu was reborn. An ancient art practiced for thousands of years, Jin Shin Jyutsu has its origins in the Japanese Kojiki, record of ancient things. Its principles were passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth, eventually falling into relative obscurity. The hero in our story is a man who rediscovered this timeless healing art, and his name is Jiro Murai. Jiro Murai was born in 1886 to a family of physicians in Japan. Lucky for us, he was the second-born son, which meant he could choose his own vocation rather than follow the family medical tradition. He studied agronomy, that's the study of agriculture, and received his PhD. He worked in the silkworm industry managing silkworm production, which was a core industry in Japan at that time. Jiro's knowledge as a researcher and ability to document data and results would become invaluable as he studied and organized JSJ material. What was your life like at age 26? Well, Jiro was very sick at that age. So sick that his prognosis was terminal. Can you even imagine that? All his family's resources and knowledge could not help him. The doctor said his disease was incurable. Jiro didn't want to pass away in a hospital where he could be poked and prodded. He didn't even want to die at home, where his family would be in constant worry about him. Instead, he wished to be in solitude, so he asked to go to the family's mountain cabin for a few days. Because he was so sick, his friends had to carry him up the mountain on a cot. Sure that he didn't have much longer to live, Jiro told his friends to return in 8 days to retrieve his body. After his friends left, Jiro took advantage of the peace and tranquility by practicing ancient traditions to become closer to his Creator. These traditions included mindful breathing, meditating, and holding various finger poses, like were on the Buddhas located in the temples in Japan. During the first 6 days, he began to feel colder and colder, as though life was leaving his body. But on the 7th day, something felt different. His body heated up as if it were on fire. Once he cooled down, his discomforts were gone, and he knew he had regained his health. He thanked his Creator and felt called upon to figure out what in the world happened to him. He started by naming the practice that led him to return to health. Jin Shin Jyutsu means the art of the Creator through man of knowing and compassion, or when heaven appears and becomes reality. Master Murai focused on developing the principles and knowledge of Jin Shin Jyutsu using his skills as a researcher and a scientist. He tested his theories and principles by performing case studies on groups of people and documenting the results. The groups he researched lived near Ino Park in Tokyo. Jiro would request people with certain ailments, such as ear conditions, come to the park on a particular day. Then he would treat them and record his observations. He became well known for helping people suffering from a variety of illnesses. He also began to treat people who were socially prominent in Japanese society. For example, when the emperor's brother became ill, he sent for Master Murai. After helping the emperor's brother, Jiro requested and was given access to the imperial records so he could look for the core of the ancient Jin Shin Jyutsu tradition. At that time, ancient records could only be accessed by religious leaders and royalty, so it was a great honor for Master Murai to be granted access to those records. By accessing the ancient records, Jiro discovered this ancient art really did exist, and he spent the next 34 years researching the philosophy and principles and practices. At this point, Master Murai realized the importance of standardizing these practices so the art could be shared for generations to come. He began to compile the information into understandable principles and standardize the routines or flows used to guide the flow of energy to restore harmony and balance. Jiro taught Jin Shin Jyutsu to small groups in his students' homes. They would meet monthly, and Master Murai would perform flows on his students after his lectures. Jiro's lectures became a well-kept secret among his students, and some would attend his lectures just to be able to receive a session from him. In late 1946, Master Murai met a student who would come to embrace Jin Shin Jyutsu as much as he did. Her name was Mary Moriko Ino. Today we know the student as Mary Burmeister, the woman who brought Jin Shin Jyutsu to the United States. Mary was born in Seattle, Washington in 1918. Her parents emigrated from Japan, but would periodically return to visit relatives. After World War II, Mary went to Japan and began teaching English and translating. It just so happened that the home of one of Mary's students happened to be where Master Murai held his lectures. Master Murai asked Mary to take a gift from Japan to America. She kindly agreed and brought the gift of Jin Shin Jyutsu to America, and eventually to the world. Mary described Jin Shin Jyutsu in her self-help book as the creator's art personally for myself. Mary spent 7 years in Japan learning as much as she could from Jiro. During that time, she met a civil serviceman named Gail Burmeister. Eventually, Mary returned to the United States to marry Gail. Jiro would continue to correspond with Mary via mail so she could continue learning about Jin Shin Jyutsu. Mary and Gail went on to have 2 sons. Even with a family to care for, Mary still made time to study Jin Shin Jyutsu. Over time, she began to help family and friends. As word spread about this little Japanese woman who could ease people's ailments with her hands, many people found their way to Mary's home. She would work from early morning until late evening helping those in need. In 1965, 12 years after returning from Japan, Mary began teaching classes. People flocked to Southern California to take her classes, and she continued to see clients between those classes. The impact of Mary's ability as a translator was immeasurable. That's what allowed her to share Jiro's research with the Western culture. Mary explained the Eastern philosophy that connects human beings to the divine by relating it to Jin Shin Jyutsu. The awareness of that connection it lets us tap into our innate ability to help ourselves and others. Mary went on to author 3 self-help books that are still taught by Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioners today. She understood how disharmony in the body affects our physical, mental, and emotional relationships, and she found a way to simplify them for practical application. In 1972, Mary's family moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, and opened a Jin Shin Jyutsu office there. She called it JSJ Inc., and to this day, that is where Jin Shin Jyutsu headquarters is located. Now that's a story.